Is anybody else just, I don't know, not digging the gameplay being shown for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle? Something just feels off, and I'm starting to ask, why wasn't this game a third person like action adventure game? All the gameplay I've seen so far looks, very jank and unpolished, and only when Indy switches to third person when he's like climbing a rope or, swinging with his whip does it look any good at all, despite how jarring it looks during the switch between the two. I mean, Machine Games has already said that first person gameplay is part of their DNA, obviously, with, like the Wolfenstein games, to name a few, and they think this is what separates them from action adventure titles like, say, Tomb Raider or Uncharted. While I personally don't get motion sickness from VR games, I've seen a lot of people comment that just like watching the gameplay is kind of giving them that feeling. Like it just doesn't look as smooth, or like the FOV is a problem. Like, I don't know. Not for me. I'm fine with VR games and stuff like that. And I know this isn't that, but it's giving people that feeling is what I'm reading anyways. Now, the problem with all this is we already have an absolutely incredible third-person action game from more than 20 years ago on the PS2, Xbox, and PC with The Emperor's Tomb. The same game engine that was used in, the amazing Buffy the Vampire Slayer games, back as well, Chaos Bleeds and then the original. Great games. Anyways, tangent aside, besides the fact that those two games are great and the Emperor's Tomb is probably the best Indiana Jones game since, even before that, probably the PC point and click adventures from Lucasfilm. Besides that, that's the last great one we've had, so it's been a while. So the previews of this game are not calling it an action adventure game, instead flipping the words to an adventure action game with a heavy emphasis on adventure. Most of the combat in this game will be stealth based, instead of taking on, many enemies at one time or shooting a lot or anything like that. So think of Thief's reboot in 2014 for like how a good chunk of this game's gameplay will be, or maybe even games like Escape from Butcher Bay, if you want to go even further back, way back in 2004. Now, this game is rumored to be around 15, maybe 20 hours to beat. I don't know if this game can hold people's attention for that long, with action set pieces so few and far between. So far, the most interesting thing about the game is the fact that it's an Indiana Jones game. If you were to strip that title off the game, would the footage you've seen so far warrant any kind of excitement? It looks like an average stealth puzzle game with pretty good graphics. Machine Games was an interesting pick to lead the development on a new Indiana Jones game, but then again, most of the studios under Bethesda focus on first-person shooter type games, so maybe they were the best pick judging by that merit. This game will live and die by how interesting the story and puzzles actually end up being. At least it sounds like you control when you get the hints with a menu slider, so hopefully it avoids, the God of War issue where the game won't shut up for more than 15 seconds and lets you try and actually solve anything before handing you the answer. I understand why Machine Games wants to differentiate itself from Tomb Raider and Uncharted, but those games were inspired by Indiana Jones. If anything, this would have been the perfect opportunity to showcase why it was such an inspiration. Well, it's coming out in less than a month now, and at least I don't gotta pay $70 to try it, as it's available day one on Game Pass, which makes me think this game is going to, not do so well financially. The last two Indy movies were pretty bad, with Dial of Destiny, Destiny being the lowest of the low. Okay, so goodwill with Indiana Jones at this point in time is probably at an all-time low in its history. And the game is coming to PS5 only a few months later, meaning Microsoft probably already suspects low sales, or that exclusivity would last longer. I guess we'll find out if Machine Games takes on a first-person adventure action indie game will do well, but I'll always wonder what a modern-day third-person action adventure Indiana Jones games would feel like. I guess it's time to get nostalgic and just replay Emperor's Tomb.